The human brain perceives the world through 5 known senses: sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste. Receptors all over our bodies are stimulated by outside stimuli, which then send that information to our brain. Each sensory pathway is connected to a specific part of our brain. Imagine you're at the beach and you're looking at the waves. Your sight pathway is activated, and in response, the sight part of your brain, located in the occipital lobe, is also activated. You can also hear the waves. This would activate the sound part of your brain located in the temporal lobe. Maybe you can taste the salt water in the air. This would activate your taste area of the brain located in the parietal lobe. You can also feel the sand on your feet. This would activate the touch part of your brain located in the somatosensory cortex. Normally, each of these areas of the brain correspond to a single sense and are only activated when the sensory pathway is active. But what if these pathways are linked? What if the activation of the sound pathway also activates the smell pathway? Or what if the activation of the touch pathway activates the sight pathway? This phenomenon is known as synesthesia.
Synesthesia is a condition in which the stimulation of one cognitive pathway produces experiences in one or more additional sensory pathways. The term synesthesia comes from the suffix esthesia, which means capacity for sensation and feeling, and the prefix syn, which means together. There are over 80 different types of synesthesia. The most common form is grapheme color synesthesia, in which people perceive each letter or number as being a distinct color. About 1 in 100 people have grapheme color synesthesia. People with a form of synesthesia known as taste-smell synesthesia see shapes or colors in response to tasting or smelling stimuli. For example, smelling a flower may cause someone with this type of synesthesia to see the color orange, or see a circle. Chromesthesia is another common form in which people see colors or shapes when they listen to music. For example, when people with this form of synesthesia hear a note, they might see the color purple. Sequence-based synesthesia is another common form in which ordinal sequences such as months, numbers, or the letters of the alphabet are perceived to occupy spatial locations in the mind's eye. For example, someone may see the month of December as hovering above their head, and the month of July as being located to their right. 1 in 27 people have some form of synesthesia, and it has been found that the condition is more common in women than men.
Studies have shown that we are all born with synesthesia. As babies, our brains have a bunch of cross-sensory connections. Think of this as a spider web. If you start on one line, you have the ability to hop over to another line due to all the connections present. Studies have shown that when babies look at faces, not only is their visual area active, but also the areas of the brain that process language and sound. Over time, our brains undergo a process of trimming. As the sensory regions of our brain become more specialized, we retain some cross-sensory connections that we find helpful for learning. This is why we often associate high-pitched sounds like a whistle with bright colors and low-pitched sounds like a tuba with dark colors. Synesthetes do not undergo this process of cross-sensory connection trimming. Their brains remain a web of connections. What is different about their brains that allow them to retain these connections? The answer to this question is currently unknown.
There is some growing research on the effect of increased levels of serotonin leading to an elevated number of cross-sensory connections in the brain. Serotonin plays a role in many bodily functions, including bone health, blood clotting necessary to heal wounds, the regulation of mood and anxiety levels, and the stimulation of the part of the brain that controls sleep. This possible link between elevated serotonin levels and the development of synesthesia was discovered in a type of synesthesia known as drug-induced synesthesia. Certain hallucinogens, such as LSD, have been found to cause synesthesia-like symptoms. LSD is a molecule that mimics serotonin and therefore increases the levels of serotonin in the brain. Further evidence for the connection between serotonin and synesthesia can be seen in the case of autism. Studies have shown that autistic individuals experience an uneven distribution of serotonin in their brain, with one hemisphere containing high levels while the other hemisphere has very low levels. This uneven distribution is a possible cause for synesthesia-like symptoms in autistic individuals.
A study done in 2017 tested the link between synesthesia and autistic individuals with savant syndrome. Savant syndrome is characterized by having extraordinary skills that are not common in the general population. Some examples are amazing memory, math, skills, and musical abilities. They concluded that having both autism and a savant skill allows for a higher chance of the person having synesthesia. This is because there is a higher chance that the presence of these extraordinary skills are related to a synesthetic trait. Synesthesia seems to be linked with the functioning of our serotonergic system as seen in cases of the LSD and autism studies, but further studies need to be done in order for us to know how exactly serotonin levels alter our sensory perception and create those cross-sensory connections.
If you found through this video that you have some sort of synesthesia, that's a reason to celebrate, as synesthesia is an interesting example of neurodiversity in humans. Synesthesia has been linked to better memory and associative learning skills, which could aid in learning and make studying an interesting and fun experience. Further studies on synesthesia could give us a better understanding of sensory perception as a whole, and how our brain processes information from our surroundings to create our subjective reality.